Sorry, but
No.
it's 6:30 PM already for a member of the license and health are present. All the person rank is excused at this point. So we move, I believe the first item is item 23. New Class D operator bartender application for Set House First Appearance. What is it?
Not here.
Not here.
Motion
So,
to hold.
I mean, what do you?
What is
Mr.
your
Chair, if I could,
recommendation?
so since this is a meeting before the common council, I believe this is one of our meetings that we can't actually take firm action at this point, especially on the two license applications. I think 3 and 4, we can accommodate a decision at some point, but,
So we have to wait till the recess meeting for this one, these two?
you can have your discussions and kind of a consensus on what you would like to do, but then, any formal action would happen during the recess meeting. Correct.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
the last time you did the discussion and then I think Kale read what you had done at the earlier meeting and then you just voted on that. Correct. So I can do that if you don't. There's not that many.
Nope.
so any further,
Anything else?
we should take up during recess. Is that correct, Nick?
You guys can have a discussion at this point on what you'd
Yeah.
like to do and some consensus, and then I can read it back to you.
Okay.
So we move on to,
So consensus is what, motion to hold?
Was the consensus to hold this item? We had discussion at
You
the
know,
last.
I don't have a problem holding this.
the fact
doesn't
that
show up.
sometime, a person, if it's really responsible, fine, I mean, I can understand, this is first time for him. But it seemed like, many of them, they don't really give darn about the fact they should be here, I mean, if they're really responsible to have a license, in West Allis, I mean, why they don't make sure they show up?
I mean, why apply if you're not gonna show up?
Well, Mr. Chair, if I
Yeah.
may, what we've been doing
Yeah, we
is,
hold
if
it.
there's a no-show once, we'll hold. Second,
Yeah, that's what we've
no-show,
done. I understand that.
denial,
Yeah.
but I don't disagree with you, so.
Yeah.
Was the motion to hold that would be the consensus, and then we can take that
Yeah.
up at recess?
Okay.
I would not have a problem with that.
So we have a motion of,
We're not gonna do action on that.
you know, motion right now at this point then?
Right, correct. I got it down what the discussion was.
Okay. Let's move on to item 24, new Class D operator bartender application for Corey Curtis. First appearances, 24. So it seemed to me that, not here either.
And again, first appearance,
First appearance,
so I would give the same grace, and we would hold for one
I'd
more.
also like to hear if he's gone through any rehab from the two OWIs
oh,
too,
yeah.
so.
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe because it's raining, it's pretty hard to get out of the house,
okay.
Could be part of it.
Yeah, it was so difficult for me to go out to my car and drive.
know.
It's actually snaining, it's not raining.
Across the parking lot right now.
All
They're walking
right,
across?
We have item 25, substance and complaint in the matter of complaints against Miski Pop, 8900 West Greenfield Avenue, Agent Kathy Godey.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
Nick, I would like your opinion. Can we take both of these together, being there?
I think we can, but I'd like to know who, are you coming for license and health?
Yeah. No common council.
well, he was here
No,
before.
they're here for.
No,
For
who are you?
Romanskis and Canes? Yeah.
Yep, we're calling your thing right now.
Calling you right now.
Come on up.
Come
Yeah, I
here.
think you can take them
Come on.
together.
So, Mr. Chair, can we
Well-
take that together?
Yes.
Okay,
Come on, grab a seat.
come on up.
So we will wait for you, see, I was. So,
So, Mr. Chair, if I could
Go
briefly,
ahead.
so we're addressing on the regular meeting, not recess meeting agenda, 3 and 4. 3 being the summons and complaint in the matter of Lemanski's, Agent Kathy, how do you pronounce your last name?
Gady.
Gady. And number 4 is summons and complaint for Canes Bar, Agent Edward Jones. For this specific these two specific interactions, I'm going to be acting as the prosecutor. If this goes to a hearing, you'll have another attorney here to act as the committee's attorney. And so the only caveat I want to give at this point is that this is kind of the initial appearance. There's really no discussion to be had. There's no questions. There's no nothing about those or in those areas. I've already explained to Mr. Jones, and I believe Kathy, you were also listening in, that you both have for each respective establishment the decision to admit, which would be construed as admitting in the entirety of the complaint. If that were to happen, we'd get a new date and effectively set it for a sentencing, for lack of a better term. There's nothing criminal about this, it's only what's gonna happen with the bar. If you deny, it's basically one-word answers. What will happen then is the matters will be set for a hearing at a future date. The city will present evidence. Again, I'll be the prosecutor in that instance, and the board would have their own attorney, have some officers show up or video or whatever we're gonna have, and then do the hearing. In the interim, we can still have discussions, but those are the two paths that statute allows for at this point in time. Okay? Anybody have questions on that process initially?
No.
All right, so I would just, we've called you together because the issues are kind of together, but first I'm gonna ask Kathy regarding the complaint against Lemansky's at 8900 West Greenfield Avenue. Are you admitting or denying those allegations?
Denying.
All right. And then number 4, someone's complaint for Kane's Bar, 6922 West Orchard Street. Ed Jones, are you admitting or denying?
Denying.
Denying, all right. So then as a matter of law going forward, we'll just schedule those hearings and continue to have those discussions. I will just make a record briefly for the committee's benefit. I did have, like I said, a discussion with Edward about what was going on, about kind of the substance of the complaint and what the concerns are. There are some remedial efforts being made at this point related to some of the problem bartenders, but we'll address all of that at a hearing date. I just want to let you know that there's progress being made to some extent. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, I don't think there's gonna be action that, I guess, if the committee wants to move for a hearing date on
I
both,
believe we should do that.
to be set, by the clerk's office when a mutually convenient time exists, would be appropriate.
So would a motion need to be made to set a hearing
I
date,
would
or
say
you
so,
can just
yeah.
move forward? I would
Yep.
make a motion to set a hearing date.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Very good.
Yeah, we're done, so.
That's it for right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you'll get a hold of us for the hearing date then, or?
Yeah, we'll work with the clerk's office, and that one I would expect, this one was a 2-minute. That one I would expect, if we go to hearing, would be an hour, if not more.
All right,
Okay? Maybe per bar.
okay.
Okay. All right.
Anything else?
Thank you for stopping by.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Are there any more items? I'm
No, we
sorry,
got
Mr.
more.
Chair.
You do? I only got
26.
4.
27?
There's only 4 on the
The committee meeting.
committee meeting. The
Yeah.
recess agenda has more, but I think that's all we can address at this point.
All right, so it was
Move
motion
to
and seconded. We're
All in
adjourned?
favor of the adjourn?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
thank you.
Thanks for coming early.
Okay.
There's a lot of pomp for these things, but not much action.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to call the November 15th meeting of the Common Council to order. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Rote.
Here.
Stefanski.
Here.
Vitale.
Here,
Weigel.
Here.
Grisham.
Here.
Haas. Here. Keen. Here. Lysick.
Here.
Ranky.
Excused.
8 present, 1 excused.
We have a quorum. Please rise if you are able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led this evening by Alderman Rote. Moving on to item D, we have one public hearing this evening. I'll ask clerk to read that out.
Ordinance to amend section 1901, the official West Allis zoning map for certain properties in alignment with the 2040 comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Mr. Scher, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, good evening. The rezoning before us is probably one of the last batches of corridor rezonings that we have for you this year. In this case, we're looking at a portion of Greenfield Avenue corridor, 22 properties that are being changed. This is an example here, the image, basically showing that along the Greenfield Avenue corridor, which runs east and west here, you have C2 zoning primarily. However, from the center line, the zoning line was established years ago, roughly about 150 feet from that center line, and it's cut properties in half with the zoning district line. So as you can see in property number 7 and 8 here, and 10 and 11, 12, many of these properties are split zoned, where the frontage is commercial C2, and then the rear portion of that same commercial lot, in this case, is zoned RA2. So what we're doing here is just basically correcting the zoning map to correct these properties in this case, number 7 would go to a commercial zoning, number 8 would go to a residential zoning, for example. So this has all gone before the Planning Commission. We've had a public information meeting. We haven't had any concerns on this round of Greenfield Avenue corridor plannings, and we are recommending approval. The next batch was just sort of a random grab bag of different properties throughout the city, primarily involving river corridors, rail corridors, interstate corridors, energy, utility corridors, and so on. And this is a good example here behind the Riverbend Shopping Center at 76th and Oklahoma. There's the Honey Creek that runs behind that shopping center. You can see that the creek itself, the corridor itself, is partially zoned commercial C3, and the other portion is zoned residential, which is sort of picking up from this neighborhood to the north. What planning is recommending in this case is that that corridor, that creek corridor, be rezoned to P, or Park District, which is compatible with the Honey Creek Park area on 76th and Oklahoma, just west of 76th Street. So that portion of it is pretty straightforward. Those corrections, we have had also just one correction I want to call out here, and then one objection. I'll get into those next. The correction is for properties in Nain Lutheran Church at 57th and Mitchell Street. We had initially interpreted this as one property, but is it in fact 2 properties? One, the parking lot being zone C2, the church being zone RB. So we are recommending striking number 33, line item 33, from the zoning list here, from the list of rezonings, and just maintaining the existing C2 and RB zoning on each of those respective properties, since they are not one property, they are not split zoned. The other is a property at 1650 South 108th. And this property has historically been, well, it was originally zoned industrial, and then in about 2016 it was decided to split zone the property. And there have been some looks at this property over the years with different Highway 100 corridor projects to possibly rezone it all to commercial, but it's been decided over the past couple of times just to keep it split zoned, and that was in the interests of the property owners and so on. The property owners, the attorney is here this evening and probably will have something to say, but they would like to keep this property zone split zoned. Staff, however, is recommending that be zoned commercial, just one zoning district to C3. And the purpose of that is basically that with our latest update of our zoning ordinance in May, We did create a commercial light industrial flex zoning use, conditional use, which does allow what you see here with the showroom on the front and offices, as well as the distribution warehouse behind. With that as a conditional use, staff is recommending that the property be rezoned to C3. There are options, of course, should council not want to change the zoning of this property to C3. You could leave it split zoned, or you could change it back to an light industrial zoning district. However, staff is recommending that it be zoned to C3. This is just a summary of the zonings the list that we've gone over, and the one correction to the Nain Lutheran Church, line item 33, and then for your consideration, line item 45 at 1650 South 108th. It's currently split zoned, light industrial and C3, and staff is recommending C3. This has all gone before the Planning Commission, which has recommended approval. There has been a public information meeting. We've got one objection to date, and with that, I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Scher. Are there any questions from the members of the council on our public hearing?
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Weigel.
Steve, on that 1650 108th, unlike most of these rezonings, are you saying we intentionally split zone that property to accommodate the use as it was then, as it currently is? It's my understanding most of this, what we've been doing with these rezonings is like housekeeping, getting rid of jagged lines and cleaning stuff up. But this was an intentional, we intentionally split zoned this to accommodate. And remind me, is the business the property owner, or is the business a tenant?
The business is a tenant, so what you have on the front, the way the form of the building is, you have roughly about, I think about 20% or so of the building is, showroom, office, and some sales. And then the other, balance of the property, 80% is warehouse, distribution, shop.
But you're saying our new flex industrial use as a conditional use will allow the current use to continue in its current form and not be non-conforming?
It would allow as a conditional use. There are, the condition is that 30% of the building would need to be office, retail, accessible to the public. Whereas I think in this case, they have about 20%, as I've been told. So it's close to being conforming. I guess I would indicate that as a split zone property, it's arguably perhaps already non-conforming. So whether you keep it split zoned or whether you change it to C3, I guess there's that non-conformity issue either way.
Okay, and the goal here is that we wanted Highway 100 to be more of a retail active place versus kind of a warehouse row of truck terminals or Amazon kind of build. We want places where customers come and go typically.
We are looking for that certainly along the frontages of Highway
On the
100
frontages,
corridor. Some of the backage areas, we've kept light industrial in some cases, but for the most part, in alignment with the comprehensive plan and the Highway 100 corridor plan, we've sought to a more commercial zoning land use.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Weigel. Any other questions from the council? Hearing none, are there any questions or comments from the members of the audience? Can you hit your green button there, the little man on it?
The little man.
There
I
we
see
go.
it green now.
Or a little person, I guess. I can't tell.
I see it, and you can hear me. I'm Attorney Brian Randall, representing Cardinal Capital Management, which is proudly located here in the city of West Allis, 901 South 70th Street. And Cardinal is also the property owner of parcel number 15 on Steve's list in the Greenfield Avenue corridor rezoning. It's the old St. Aloysius Church and School property. That property owner is actually CCM Aloysius LLC is my client in that regard. We are here in support of the rezoning, we being Chris Geiger, who's one of the vice presidents with Cardinal, present this evening. We spent a lot of time here at City Hall working on what's the future of the St. Aloysius site. As I mentioned, and as you all probably know, as a former church and school, we've tried, since we purchased the property about a year ago, to carefully and sensitively take care of decommissioning a lot of religious artifacts, a lot of things that probably should have new homes and should not find their way even on eBay or to a dumpster or anything like that. So it's taken time to do that, as well as to find new homes for library books and things that could be reused in the school building. And now we have just completed our internal assessment of lead abatement and asbestos, because the way they constructed things years ago used some materials that aren't very friendly in the demolition process and to the environment. So we've assessed all that, going to be addressing how we do that as far as remediation and abatement for what's yet to come. I don't have any announcements. I can't really do that as part of a topical thing with the public hearing anyway, but we will be working with city staff, appreciated their help to date, and with the district alderpersons as far as what the future and the new vision will be. But as it relates to tonight's rezoning, we appreciate staff's efforts. We hope that the council does approve it, because I'm familiar with those jagged edges or split zone parcels. And in this case, we very much support the new zoning. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Brad Dagan. I represent the 1650 South 108th Street LLC, and my clients have asked me to appear and talk a little bit about their perspective regarding the rezoning. I've had a couple opportunities to meet with Steve. This is actually my third time appearing before you regarding this property. I first came before you in 2016, as Steve mentioned, to push for the split zoning at the time my clients were acquiring the property. The split zoning was requested as a means of them being able to invest into this property, taking the old Lackey and Joy's warehouse, the old black building, and blowing out the front of it and doing that storefront that you saw in the picture that Steve had up before. The front is, it's been quite successful. The Able Plumbing has been in there for this whole period of time. They have the entire building. They rent the entire building from my clients. One of the critical things that we pursued at that time was getting that split zoning, C3 in the front 1/3 of the building, and M1, which is now I1 zoning for the back 2/3 of the building, because this is a central distribution hub for Able, along with their showpiece showroom, basically. And 5 years ago, I think we promised, and I think it's true to this day, that this would shine out as a gem of redevelopment in this area. And one of the things that's consistent with both the Highway 100 study and the 2040 plan is the front showroom is really nice. It's spectacular. I've been in there a few times. It is accessed by the public, which is one of the main goals of the 2040 plan, is to create more commercial uses along Highway 100 corridor, and I think we comply with that. One of the problems we had is that this building basically takes up the whole block. So it's kind of a very unique property, and we came before you before because my clients basically figured out that they had to stick about $1 million into the building after buying it to make it suitable for a tenant such as Able or somebody who could come in there and basically allow this to be a good investment. It has worked out. They ended up having to put about $200,000 into a loading dock way in the back of the property, and the rest of the money took off the whole front of the building and completely rebuilt it. So at that time, we did ask for that zoning change, and the city was gracious enough to grant that, and I think it's proven to be a good investment. It's created jobs, it's created traffic, it looks nice, and it definitely complies with the 2040 long-range plan as well as the Highway 100 study. One of the problems I have is that we were here back in October of last year. Again, a rezoning effort was undertaken, and again, I kind of made the same arguments that, hey, we stuck a lot of money into this building based upon the fact that it needed to be rezoned. And I think the critical thing here is that split zoning is allowed in the ordinances, but this property in particular is so unique that it's kind of the sort of the unusual piece of property that doesn't fit the norm for, I think, what Steve and the planning folks are trying to accomplish. Instead, I think this property does meet that, but because of the size of this building, the split zoning was necessary back then, and I respectfully submit it's necessary now, and it is permitted under the code. So it's not as if split zoning is prohibited by West Allis. It's just that a lot of the examples that were given where split zoning doesn't make sense or split zoning resulted in some weird property divisions doesn't fit here. And I know that in the long-term plan, there are parcels up and down Highway 100 where there are I-1 uses off the corridor, and we're asking you to continue that, at least for now, and maybe reconsider this again in a few years if there's further development. One of the things that I pointed out, or sort of observed in my analysis, and I talked with Steve about it, is that this is off of the Greenfield Highway 100 intersection, where this is a property where the industrial or I-1 zoning behind it may take a lot longer than 2040 for that to come into fruition as being sort of a commercial hub of retail and destination locations. So I'm here to suggest and request is that you pull this property out of the rezoning for now, and let's consider it again in a few years, preferably 5 years. I don't mind coming back here, but I think my clients and I are suggesting that as it sits now, this property does meet the long-range plan of the City of West Allis, and we're asking you to recognize that, recognize the investment that's been made, recognize the fact that 6 years ago we came before you and said we're going to do this, and that's exactly what my clients did. They fixed up this property, major renovations, made it a destination for retail, and also created jobs and employment. So I know that the new C3 has that commercial light industrial flex district. The problem with that is, and I ran through this with Steve, is that there's a 30% rule that has to be accessible to the public. Now, under this current use that we have, we were, as Steve mentioned, about 20% accessible to the public, which is why I'm here today to ask you to carve this out as an exception from rezoning, at least at this time, and give us a chance to maybe have some further discussions with the city and maybe embellish upon that new designation. And I know that there were some other measures taken which do help with the use of the property relative to parking and so on. But I think that that 30% accessible to the public rule is the one that has basically brought me here today to ask you to continue the zoning as split C3 and now I1 zoning for the back 2/3 of the property. I think given the fact that my clients have been good citizens here and done a great job of renovating this property and maintained its appearance over this stretch of time, I think gives you the impetus, at least I hope, to kind of maintain the current zoning until we could maybe revisit some of these designations, such as the commercial light industrial flex district, which does have that 30% rule in it, but also examine in more detail excuse me, potential other uses that might apply, such as advanced manufacturing or light industrial, which would be permitted conditional uses under the C3 zoning. But at this time, what we're looking at is, frankly, we're hoping that Able renews their lease, and eventually that we'd be able to continue with tenants of the size of Able in this property. In order to promote that to them, the zoning has to be conducive to its current use, which is the split zoning of C3 and I1. For those rambling reasons, and based upon the reasons I've presented before, we're going to ask you to remove it from consideration for today, but maybe allow us some further time to talk about it with the planning folks and come up with a solution that might be best, not just for my clients, but also for the city. So I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to comment or question public hearing number 1 this evening?
Mayor Devine, if I could?
Yep.
I'd hope that the attorney could speak at our Safety and Development Committee meeting during recess for a deep dive on this, or I just have some questions, and now is not the place for it, so.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on public hearing number 1? Seeing none, we will close public hearing number 1. And we will move on to item E, which is citizen participation. This is where the council may receive information from the public during this 30-minute period. Each speaker must announce their name and address and we ask that you limit your comments to one statement of no more than 5 minutes. Is there anybody that wishes to address the council under citizen participation this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will close citizen participation, and we will move to item F. Our standing committees will be meeting during recess. The room numbers are listed on the bottom of page 1 of your agenda. I just have 2 quick things for the mayor's report this evening. One, I want to thank Tanner Paul, Post 120, and their chief, or their commander, Dale Slowick, for helping put on a very nice Veterans Day program last Friday. And it was well attended. It was a great event. And I also just want to congratulate our health commissioner, Bob Leishow, on being appointed to the state's Public Health Council by the governor. Congratulations. That's great. That does conclude the mayor's report this evening. Do we have any reports from the alderpersons?
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
I move for approval of the common council minutes of November 1st, 2022.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Minutes are approved. We'll move to item J, which has no standing committee reports, so we will go to item K, which is the consent agenda.
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
unless there's an objection from any member of the council to have these items acted on separately, I would move that the consent agenda be approved as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion. And a second. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Rote.
Aye.
Stefanski.
Aye.
Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas. Aye. Keen. Aye. Lysick.
Aye.
8 in favor, 1 excused.
Motion carries.
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
I move that we stand in recess until conclusion of the committee meetings.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in recess.